Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's program, History at High Noon, from Landfill Dogs to Stardust and Ashes. My name is Stacy, and I handle adult education here at the Museum of History. If you enjoyed today's program, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at ncmuseumofhistory.org, where you can learn more about our upcoming programs, exhibits, and digital resources. This is also where you can learn more about shopping in our wonderful museum shop, as well as joining our North Carolina Museum of History Associates. Our Associates and Foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which in addition to many other things, helps make programs like today's program possible. Also, as a special part of today's program, a limited number of signed copies of Professor Johnstone's book, Landfill Dogs, will be available for purchase in the museum shop. The sale of this book supports the Wake County Animal Shelter. So you can either go online to our museum shop, ncmuseumofhistoryshop.org, and I'll drop that in the chat, or you can come visit us at the museum and grab your copy. A few quick housekeeping items for today. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program, and to please type any questions that you have for our guest speaker into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the presentation, I will ask our speaker as many of your questions as time allows. So it's my honor to introduce today's speaker, Professor Shannon Johnstone. Professor Johnstone's photographic work deals with themes that reclaim what has been discarded and make visible that which is hidden. Her project, Landfill Dogs, has been featured nationally and internationally and was most notably on ABC World News with Diane Sawyer in 2013 and CNN.com in 2014. Her recent project, Stardust and Ashes, which was a Critical Mass Finalist in 2017 and exhibited at the Front in New Orleans in 2017. Both projects were featured at the Colorado Springs Fine Art Center, Year of the Dog 2018, and the Gaddy-Hamrick Art Gallery, All Creatures Great and Small 2019. Johnstone is a tenured professor at Meredith College here in Raleigh. So Professor Johnstone, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I will just jump right in with my talk. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. So welcome. My name is Shannon Johnstone, and I am an artist and I am an animal lover. And today, the focus of this talk is going to be about two of my photography projects that revolve around animal shelters. And those two projects are Landfill Dogs, which you can see here on the left, and then Stardust and Ashes, which is on the right. And while they look quite different aesthetically, they share a fundamental connection and both advocate for homeless pets. So every year, over 200,000 cats and dogs enter into animal shelters across our state of North Carolina. And every year, about 40% of those are euthanized because there's not enough homes and there's nowhere else to put them. I want to just add a disclaimer to that, in that 2021 was a particularly great year in that we had many less animals enter into the animal shelter, about 163,000, and only about 35,000 of those were euthanized, which means that it was only 22%, which is quite a bit less. And I want to acknowledge that things are getting better, but there is still a problem. Furthermore, in North Carolina, which is an agricultural state, we have no laws regulating spaying, neutering, breeding, or selling of pets. And without regulation, the only tool we have to combat animal overpopulation, tragically, is euthanasia. My interest in this topic began when I adopted my first dog, LULA, from a rescue group. And you can see here sort of the progression of her life, and this will make more sense as I go on. But when I adopted her, I promised myself that I was getting a dog once I graduated from graduate school. And the only reason why I adopted was because I wanted an adult dog and I didn't have time for a puppy. So if I could have bought her, I would have. But it was my neighbor who saw that I adopted a dog and thought that I was knowledgeable and passionate about animal overpopulation. And she talked me into volunteering with her at the Wake County Animal Center. So she literally came up to me and said, oh, it's great that you've rescued her. And I'm like, yes, 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 I've rescued her, but I had never set foot in an animal shelter and I didn't know anything about it at all. So, and you can see here when she passed away, we buried her ashes with a tree and put like a fairy ring of glow in the dark rocks to commemorate her, and that will become important later. However, when I began volunteering, what I started doing there was cleaning cages and doing dishes and doing whatever that they needed. And so this is a photo of that. But we found that my best skills were really not in cleaning at all, but rather taking photos to help get the dogs adopted. And this little girl here is named Holiday Affair, and I love her smile. So these are the kinds of photos that were valuable to the animal shelter. But what I was really interested in was what happened to the animals, where they went, what happened to them after they came in and when they left. So this is the kind of image that I was interested in, which is you are looking at 378 cats and dogs, which equals the number of animals in Wake County Animal Center can hold at any one time. And when I began working with them in 2005, they received an average of 35 new animals every day. So I would go in each week and there would be a new set of animals. And I just kept thinking, where are they going? Where are they coming from and where are they going? So at the same time that I was volunteering, I began a documentary project called Breeding Ignorance. And this project illustrated the euthanasia process known as lethal injection. And I'm going to spare you most of those images today, but these are just a few of them. And I want to acknowledge that this project did not have the intended effect that I was hoping for. So what I was hoping for was that people would see these images and they would be inspired to spay and neuter their animals to combat over animal population. I thought people would see these and think, oh, there's something I can do to help out here. But that is not what happened. So instead, these images were shared through social media as evidence of cruelty found in animal shelters, quite the opposite of what I was trying to say. People took these images without my permission and paired them with text I did not write and did not mean. And these images were used in smear campaigns against so-called kill shelters, which is, as I said, the opposite of what I wanted to have happen. This is a really good time to talk about what an open admission shelter is versus what a kill shelter is. So an open admission shelter means that the animal shelter must accept every animal that comes through the door. They cannot turn an animal away, even if this shelter is at full capacity. As a result, these shelters must euthanize animals to make room for more. Typically, these shelters are run by the government, and they're often referred to as kill shelters. Conversely, no-kill shelters are often privately run, and they're typically not open admission. A private shelter can refuse an animal if the shelter is full or if the animal is sick or otherwise unadoptable. By contrast, open admission shelters have to take every animal that comes through their doors. So the real difference between kill or no kill is not whether animals are euthanized, but rather who has to do it. And here we have a line outside of the Wake County Animal Center before they open on a Saturday, and all the dogs you can see here are waiting to be surrendered. So a few years went by, and I kept thinking about how to use photography to speak in a way, to speak about a difficult subject in a way that wouldn't alienate the viewer. And I was really inspired by the work of Chris Jordan. And here is a sample of his work here. So you can see here, he likes to photograph things that we can't see with our eyes. So he photographs invisible waste streams. And what you're looking at here is 60,000 plastic bags, and you can see a detail of it here in the bottom. And that 60,000 plastic bags is the number of plastic bags that we use in the United States every 5 seconds. So he's trying to visualize our waste streams. And I was really inspired by this. So around the same time that I was mulling over how to do this, how to use photography in a positive way, the head of the Environmental Services division, who oversaw the animal shelter, approached me about a new public park that had just opened up in North Raleigh called Landfill Park. And here's an image of it still under construction. He was looking for unique ways to market the animals, and he thought that this would be a good backdrop to to do it, since it was the second highest point in the county and you could see for miles up there. But I found myself lingering on the idea of how he was in charge of both the animal shelter and the landfill. And then it occurred to me that pets are property. And when you don't want your property anymore, the government gives you somewhere to bring that property. And this is how Landfill Dogs started. So my hope with Landfill Dogs is to highlight the most overlooked dogs, the ones who are most at risk for euthanasia. And I hope to depict them not in their reality, which you see here, but to feature them in a new way that hopefully honors their spirit while making a broader statement about the cultural disposability around pets. So I'd like to read you my artist statement as I go through some of these images, but I also want to show you how you can read these images because I've got some text about them in here. So you can see on the left-hand side, it gives the animal's name and their impoundment number. It also gives you the date that they were impounded and where they were found. Any information I had about that, I added. And then what happened, whether they were adopted or sent to a rescue or euthanized, or if they're still waiting. And there are still some that are waiting years later. So here we go. Landfill Dogs highlights shelter dogs who face euthanasia if they do not find a home. Since October 2012, each week, I brought one dog from Wake County Animal Center and photographed him or her at Landfill Park, a former landfill converted into a public park. I used the backdrop of Landfill Park for two reasons. First, the dogs will end up in a landfill if they do not find a home. They will be euthanized and their bodies will be buried deep in the landfill among our trash. In fact, below the surface at Landfill Park, where all these images were taken, there are more than 25,000 dogs buried there. It was an active landfill for 14 years. And during that time, the Wake County Animal Center brought its euthanized animals here. I think of Landfill Park as a burial ground. And these photographs offer the last opportunity for these dogs to find homes. The second reason for the landfill location is because the county animal shelter falls underneath the Environmental Service Division, which is the same management that oversees the landfill. In fact, most animal shelters in North Carolina are on actual landfill sites. The thinking behind this is that our pets are considered property under law, and the government provides us somewhere to bring our unwanted property. We recklessly breed cats and dogs, and when we have nowhere to put them, they end up in an animal shelter. And they wait here until they find an adoptive family. But if they do not, they will be euthanized and their bodies will be brought to the landfill. In essence, homeless cats and dogs are just another waste stream, much like our old couches, broken bicycles. Through this project, I hope we see the beauty in these homeless, discarded creatures. So after each photo shoot, I edited the photos and shared them with the animal shelter. And they put them on their shelter's website and on social media. And I discovered that animal advocates are quite active on social media and Facebook in particular. So my husband made a Facebook page specifically for Landfill Dogs. And we also made a Landfill Dog website, and the project began to spread like wildfire. More and more dogs started to find homes. The project was shared through blogs and then through BuzzFeed, and then ABC World News got involved, and then the Associated Press, a book contract, etc. All of this generated more positive press for the shelter, and because of that, more and more dogs and cats actually got homes. One of the collaborative aspects of this project that I had not planned on was how these photographs were shared and how people started to follow Facebook and they began to adopt dogs because they were landfill dogs. So unlike breeding ignorance, I wanted these images to be shared far and wide and to be put in different contexts. I wanted them to have a life of their own outside the print, in addition to being shown as fine art photographs. So in terms of exhibitions, One of the things that has been important to me about this project is that the images also be displayed in locations that outside of art galleries. So I want people who might not be going to see art to be able to interact with the images. So in addition to being included in exhibitions as far away as Taiwan and Germany, Landfill Dogs has also been on display in two Wake County libraries, the Raleigh Municipal Building's lobby, and they are on permanent display in the animal shelter and the environmental services offices. And they've also been exhibited in many local galleries. So to date, I photographed 192 dogs, which resulted in 162 of those finding homes or being sent to rescue. 22 were euthanized, and there's still a few that are still waiting even these years later, trying to find a home. I want to make sure that I emphasize that the photos are not the only reason for these successes. There is an army of dedicated shelter workers, volunteers, and foster families who worked tirelessly for these animals. But I like to think of Landfill Dogs as a microphone for these dogs and their advocates. This is Mr. Pigpen. And Miss Ladybell here is still waiting for a home. So, for those of you who are photographers and who are interested in the technical side of photography, I want to show you my process of how these images are made. They are cropped and highly photoshopped. So you can see here, I've taken out the handler here. And in this example here, you can see that I have taken out the handler, taken out any forms of restraint, and composited the images together. These are not at all documentary. In fact, the reality of these dogs is that they spend 23 plus hours a day in a cage in isolation, and they're lucky if they get out for a 20-minute walk. So I like to think of these photographs as the wishes and dreams of these dogs. So I'm going to switch now to talk a little bit. And by the way, you can get the Landfill Dogs book, as you mentioned, Stacy mentioned at the beginning of this talk. But I'm going to switch now and talk about Stardust and Ashes and how that came about. So while I was working on Landfill Dogs, my father passed away unexpectedly in 2014. My dad was always a huge supporter of my photography, and he helped with several Landfill Dog photo shoots on his visits from his home in Milwaukee. And so you can see him here as part of it. So after he passed away, I made this portrait of him using his cremated ashes and a kid's solar kit that my mom had given me. So I had one of the mornings after he died, I really wished I could have coffee with him. So I went outside with his ashes and I put them on this little solar kit. And what happened was this image here, which I thought looked a lot like a constellation. And I thought that's a perfect depiction of him and where he is now. So that got me thinking. So I placed his ashes, as I just said, with a tree planted for my beloved first dog, LULA, after I was done making the image. And I began to think about what a gift it is to be able to mourn for someone and to recognize the impact they had and the importance and significance of their life. So you can see here, this is the solar plate that I made with him. And then here's my LULA dog, as I mentioned, and this is what we did with her ashes with that fairy ring of glow-in-the-dark rocks too. And so when I was done with my dad's ashes, I put him with her in here. So grieving for my father while working on Landfill Dogs made me think of all of the animals in our shelters who do not find homes. And I longed to create a memorial to them, for them. This is the impetus for Stardust and Ashes. But before I go any further, I want to explain how the images are made. A cyanotype is a very old, relatively slow photographic process that results in a blue and white image when exposed to UV lights. This is the same thing that a solar kit is. So a cyanotype is created from a mixture of for those of you like science, is created from a mixture of two chemicals, potassium ferrocyanide and ferric ammonium citrate. And it can be applied to any surface that can absorb the mixture. So the cyanotype can be made on a variety of fabrics and paper. And this process dates back to 1842, so it's quite old. These cyanotypes from Stardust and Ashes are actually on fabric as opposed to like a paper. So also about cyanotypes is that architects and engineers would use this process to copy their drawings, which is where we get this term blueprint from. So with Stardust and Ashes, instead of a negative, I use cremated remains. So everywhere from the animal shelter, everywhere the ashes touched turned white, and the sun turned the rest of the image, this beautiful Prussian blue. So I would like to read you my artist statement as I go through some of these images. I made these cyanotypes with the ashes of euthanized homeless animals from an animal shelter's crematorium. These animals died with nobody to mourn their passing except maybe a few overwhelmed shelter workers. I hope these images serve as a memorial to these animals who are nobody and nothing. Turn to dust and return to the cosmos to become everyone and everything, just like we all will someday. Using my own breath and fingers to manipulate the ashes, I work the ashes into celestial configurations while the sun exposes the cyanotype, turning the negative space Prussian blue. With these images, I hope to mourn the passing of thousands of our forgotten companions and remind us that we are all connected and headed for the same fate, reduced to dust and return to the stars. Although these two series look very different, I see a connection between these two projects. Both seek to honor our forgotten companions by saying that even though you were locked away and out of the public eye, wiped from this earth, you matter. So right now, I want to show you a little more of how these images are made and what they look like. So right now there are two very different sizes. One is smaller, which is 8 by 10, and the other is a mural size, which is like 5 feet by 7 feet. And you can see here my dogs were I make them in my backyard, and so they were part of this, which I also really liked. You can see here little George is supervising this one. As it's exposing to the sun. And here's that same piece finished. So this is an example of some experimentations I was doing where I would put two cyanotypes. Since they're fabric, they when you shine light through them, they glow. So I photographed them on the light box here and then rephotographed them. And here's another one with that same technique. And here is an example of another experimentation that I've started doing, which is where I scan them into the computer and then I layer them together. And here's another one that it does that same technique of layered together and then digitally enhanced. And another. Where to from here? So this is an example of the Stardust and Ashes in a exhibition. And this was from the front gallery down in New Orleans back in 2017. And I got really excited because there was a window at the back of the shelter. I mean, not the shelter, I'm sorry, the gallery. Window at the back of the gallery. And I thought, well, let's hang one of these murals in the window. And what happened was gorgeous. So during the day, the mural was illuminated. It looked like a sun or a sun or a star or moon during the day. And then you can see here at night in the upper right corner there, at night, it glowed from the inside out and looked like a moon. And so I really liked the fact that it worked both day and night. So we tried this again at a little pop-up exhibition in Durham. And you can see the cyanotype down here in the window. And I'm still experimenting with this. And this is an example of an installation that we did at the Frankie G. Weems Gallery at Meredith College back in 2019, where I installed 9 panels in the skylights in the gallery. And I really liked the site-specific installation. I'm hoping to do more of those as I move forward with this. So that is what I've got, and I'm happy to take any questions. And here's Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. Wow, I'm sitting over here just trying not to start crying.
Sorry.
No, it's moving. It's absolutely beautiful. We don't have questions yet, so guys, feel free to type those in the chat. But we did have a message from Dell who said, "This is so beautiful and moving. I'm a big animal lover too and photographer. Also a TV&R volunteer, originally from Pennsylvania, now in North Carolina. Many seem oblivious to spaying and neutering. They also worked in cyanotypes, which is really incredible. So how was it the kit that gave you the inspiration to do the cyanotypes, or how did that kind of come about? Because that's an incredibly creative idea.
Yeah, I mean, so cyanotypes are something that you know, I learned about in school studying photography, and you know, I made them before, and they do involve these chemicals. And so I didn't mix my own chemicals or anything. My mom had just, like, at a museum gift shop, she had given me like a little solar kit, which is for like, it was like in a little stocking stuffer. It was really nice. And so I had just had that in my drawer, and I just had my dad's ashes, and I just wanted to do something with them. So I thought, well, let me just pull this out and see what happens. I didn't know that it would look like a constellation, but so it was, I guess, serendipity, I guess is what you would call that. I hadn't planned on making an art project out of it at all. It was just something I was doing because I was really missing my dad. And we used to have donuts and coffee when I was a kid. And so, well, not coffee, but, but that came later. So I just wanted to do something with him, and it just, I had a real hard time when he died. And I wasn't enjoying the mourning process at all. And so that got me thinking about how difficult it is, but it's also really a gift. It's something that we do because we love. And it made me think about the animals and the animals who die without that love. And I know mourning is for the living. There's nothing that's going to happen for those animals like who've already died. But I just think that having compassion and empathy will allow us to care for the ones that are alive if we're aware of the ones that we didn't do that for. So that was my hope with that. I have now just gone down another tangent, so I'm going to stop talking.
The world could certainly use more empathy and compassion, that's for sure. Susan says, tell us more about your visits to Landfill Park with the dogs. What made a good experience for them, and how did you choose the dogs that you photographed?
And Susan, I am so glad you're here. So the Landfill Park I mean, there were a lot of dogs, so there was a lot of variety of experiences, but in general, most of them were a handful, and they were, I always needed at least one other person with me. In the beginning, I thought I could do it all on my own, and I could not handle the dog and take pictures because they were really excited. I like
I'm
to
sure.
think of it, yeah, like they're in the animal shelter, and it's like sensory deprivation except for sound. And then when they get out there, it's the opposite. It's quiet, but like there's just like every smell and like sound. So a lot of times they were just like going crazy. And most of them liked playing ball, which I was really surprised about. And I never chose the dogs. I didn't want to be part of that decision making. So I would have the foster coordinator and the volunteer coordinator choose the dogs for me. So sometimes there would be need for like 4 or 5 different dogs, and I would ask them to pick among them. And when they couldn't, I would choose the one who had been there the longest. So that's how that decision got made. But Sometimes I photograph more than one dog a week. I'd go back again, but I can't. Yeah.
That's amazing.
There was only one dog. I think, no, there were two dogs who didn't want to go up to Landfill Park. They just started walking up there and they were like, nope, I'm not going. So that only
Like,
happened
no
twice.
thanks.
Yep, nope, I'm not
Oh,
into it.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we just photographed them around.
That's incredible. So GS Miller Macon, sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly, says, thank you for what you're doing. It definitely makes a difference. And Patty says it's an awesome book. Thank you. So maybe that's a good segue to ask you one last question is, how can people help? What can they do if they joined us today and maybe they know about Wake County Animal Shelter, or maybe they're brand new and their heartstrings are hit by this. So what can they do? Where can they go to help?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing people can do, and this is free and it doesn't require anything from you, is just to advocate for people who are interested in adopting to not buy their animals. So you can find whatever animal you want, and whatever breed, if that's important to you, or whatever type, you can find everything you're looking for at an animal shelter, or if you don't see it there, you can always then go to a rescue. So one thing that I want to emphasize is the animal shelter and the rescues work hand in hand. So the rescues come through the animal shelter and pick the animals they think they can adopt out, and then they go there and you can adopt from them too. So you are helping. So just being an advocate for adopting is huge. So if you hear a friend, even if you're not in the market, if you hear a friend saying, oh, I want to get a dog, just say, oh, let me tell you where you can go. And that's the most helpful thing. But for those of you that want a little more like boots on the ground kind of thing, Wake County Animal Center, they had a hiatus for accepting volunteers during the COVID years, and they have just opened back up for volunteering. So you can accept, they are accepting applications, and so you can become a volunteer and you can help out. And they need help with everything from cat cuddling to dog walking to, small critter comforting. They got rabbits, and it's not just dogs. Can I say one more thing about that?
Of course.
The reason why
Uh-oh. Oh no.
need in the animal shelter. So I want to somebody.
So I'm so sorry. We lost you. Can you say that again? I'm sorry. It froze up on us.
Sorry. I don't know
No.
what point you lost me, so I'm going to say the whole thing again.
At the very beginning. So yeah, just start from the top, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you heard the spiel about the adopting, right?
Yes,
Okay,
to
yeah.
adopt, but yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then what I was going to say was that oh, now I forgot.
I'm so sorry.
No, oh, volunteering. Yeah, there was
Yes.
they weren't accepting new volunteers for a really long time because of COVID, but now they've opened that back up, and so you can do a variety of different things. And then I also wanted to say that I didn't just focus on dogs because I like dogs or something, and that cats actually have a bigger need for help and assistance, and they get adopted at a much slower rate than dogs do. But the reason I didn't focus on cats was because I couldn't take them for a walk. And so I didn't bring them outside. But I really want to acknowledge that Trap, Vaccinate, and Return program. I think one of the people in the chat mentioned that they do that, and that is fabulous. I thank you for your advocacy and your work. That's huge. And Wake County has now started to support that, which has really helped our euthanasia numbers come down. So yeah, cats are really the underdogs. So
I think that is all that we have from the chat today. I just want to thank you so much again, Professor, for joining us for this incredible talk today, and for all of your beautiful work on behalf of these animals. As one of our attendees said, it was beautiful and moving tribute to these animals. So it's been so special for us today. So thank you so much again.
no, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. So thank you.
And thank you guys for joining us today. I hope that you'll join us for our next History at High Noon, Polly Murray House, as part of our Polly Murray exhibit here at the museum. That program will be happening on Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, at noon over the Zoom platform. So we hope to see you there. Thank you guys so much again. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take care,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.